Before I introduce our next speaker, the boiling point of water is not a policy statement. The boiling point of water is not an opinion. It's a scientific fact. The fact that smoking is dangerous to your health is not an opinion. It's a scientific fact. And when we look back on the carbon dioxide record over 800,000 years, we never see a time when we had this much CO2 in the atmosphere. And again, every single time there has been an increase in CO2, there's been an increase in temperatures. Wanted to point that out. Number two, we are already making the decision about where we live and where we work. And if you've been caught on that 10 freeway or the 405 during rush hour, or trying to get from Santa Monica, out of Santa Monica, from 5 to 6 in the afternoon, and the nightmare and the millions and millions of hours of commuter time that are wasted, we're already faced with those problems. We need to do something about them. And so what this forum, what this celebration is about freedom, about us having a choice. Today I had a choice to ride my bike here. And I freed up those parking spaces out there for you, and I decreased the traffic level a little bit for each one of you who came in a car. I had the freedom to do that, and I've got my health to show for that, by the way, too, because my heart's more stronger than it would have been if I'd have driven over here. But you didn't have to do that. You could drive here if you wanted to, but you had the freedom because this city decided years ago that they were going to build bike lanes and make it a safe place to ride your bike. And I appreciate that freedom to both drive my car, which I do, and to ride my bike when I get an opportunity to do that. All right? So this CCA thing sounds like a thing about freedom too, because when I think about it, you know, I don't have any freedom to figure out where my energy comes from. I pay my energy bill. I don't decide where it comes from or how much I pay. I just pay it. And that's not freedom. That's not what America was really supposed to be about. And when we're talking about CCAs, I think we are talking about increasing our freedoms and our choices when it comes to energy and how we use our resources. So I get to introduce our next speaker, but I have to find him. Oh, there it is. All right. Okay, Joe Galliani. Joe is the founder and organizer for the South Bay 350.org Climate Action Group and chair, as well as chair of the South Bay Clean Power Working Group. And then Sean Marshall is with you as well. Sean Marshall with us will come via webinar. Is that correct? All right, Joe, come on up.
Thank you, Zach, and thank you all for being here today. I moved to California in 1976 from New Jersey, and I, of course, chose to move to Santa Monica. I lived on 14th Street between Broadway and Colorado in 1976 when our then governor, a gentleman named Jerry Brown, was telling us that we are living in an era of diminished expectations. That was what Jerry Brown said in 1976. I think our expectations are now no longer diminishing now that we're here talking about some of this. We're going to hear from one of my mentors in CCA, Sean Marshall. Sean Marshall was a councilwoman in Mill Valley, California, when Marin Clean Energy launched its community choice aggregation. And she'll probably tell you a lot about that, but let me give you a little background on Sean. She was a city councilwoman, and then they formed a CCA. And I'm just going to start calling CCA community choice because that's really what it's all about. CCA is kind of wonky, and aggravation sounds like aggregation, so we don't want to go there. But Sean Marshall started as a Mill Valley City Councilwoman, and then with CCAs, community choice, council people become the representatives on the CCA board. Each city that participates in a community choice program gets a representative, and that's what makes community choice programs locally controlled and locally run. And so you will have the great pleasure of having to choose among several great candidates here in Santa Monica on your own city council, and we hope that they'll fight for the right to be the representative of your community choice program. But once Sean's work brought a CCA to Marin County, she became the member from Mill Valley on their board, and then they had an unfortunate accident because the inspiration and the driving force behind their community choice program had a heart attack and passed away. And Sean then took that leadership role on the community choice board. And once Marin Clean Energy got up and running, and we'll hear the details about that, Sean took it a next step forward, and she founded LEAN, Local Energy Aggregation Network. And she founded this nonprofit to help folks like us. LEAN is an organization that exists to provide technical answers and advice and direction for community groups like our South Bay Clean Power Group to find out the details of what a community choice program is. We got the template for the resolution that 9 cities have now passed from our friends at Lean Energy. So without further ado, Zach, with your help, let's hear from Sean, and then I'll come back and tell you all the details of what we're doing locally.
This is Sean Marshall. I really want to thank you for having me today, and I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person, but delighted to join you to speak about an important topic, community choice energy in California, how it works, why it matters, and what's happening, where we're going with it. I'll start off by just showing you a little picture. That's me on the weekends. I figured that was okay because it is a Sunday. And before we get into the heart of the matter, I did want to very much thank the event sponsors of Climate Action Santa Monica, the City of Santa Monica, and of course South Bay Clean Power for all of the great work they've been doing to bring this program into reality in the South Bay area. So now we will move along into the heart of the story, and I'm going to move through these slides relatively quickly because I'm hoping to get them within 10 minutes or so. So I will say that if I miss anything or if you have questions, I believe I'm followed by Joe Galliani, who will be able to do a super job of responding and filling in any gaps that I may not get to during this webinar. So we like to start off with a very a general picture of how community choice energy works. And what it does is that it allows a single municipality or a group of them, whether that's cities or counties or any mixture of that, to come together to pool the electricity demand of their particular constituents. That includes municipal accounts, residential accounts, and commercial accounts. And they get together to basically pool the electricity demand in order to procure or develop power on their behalf. The CCE program does partner with the incumbent utility. In your case, that will be Southern California Edison. And the utility continues to provide all of the power transmission, distribution, all of the grid infrastructure, grid maintenance, and customer billing, so that ultimately the power flows through to you, the customer, just as it does today, with the key difference that the generation portion of that came from a community resource and hopefully greener sources of power. This is just a very brief slide to show you where community choice energy is around the country. It is not a new concept. It was actually started in Massachusetts in the late 1990s and worked its way west. In California, we passed its enabling legislation in 2002. That was AB 117. And the first program was launched in 2010, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. So many people ask us, you know, why is community choice something that we should be interested in? And there are a number of reasons, and we'll go through them here. The first of which is that community choice is a local program that is responsive to local environmental and economic goals. So if you have a goal in the South Bay region of rapidly shifting to cleaner power supply, Community Choice can deliver on that. They've also been delivering on lower electricity rates for customers and also local economic activity. CCE offers consumers a choice where none currently exists, and that's because, as you all know, Edison, like PG&E in the north and San Diego Gas and Electric, these are monopoly utilities. They're vertically integrated, and so this really is offering up an energy choice that customers have not previously had in California. The program is revenue supported, not taxpayer subsidized. So the way this works is that you have an existing ratepayer revenue that is paid to the utility and is redirected through to the Community Choice program for the generation portion of their bill. In that way, it is not a new revenue stream, it is an existing revenue stream that gets redirected. And that means that there is no hit to the taxpayer base to pay for this program. Currently, the CCE programs up and running in the state are offering less expensive electricity generation rates. We'll see more about that in a moment. And we see dramatic reductions in carbon and greenhouse gas emissions as a result of changing the type of power that we're putting on the grid on behalf of CCE customers. The program is not exclusive. What's really nice about it is that it's really integrative of other innovative energy programs. It works well with other things and can actually leverage other programs at the local level. It does open up opportunity for new business, new clean power innovations, and local energy programs. And we will see some examples of that in slides coming. The basic program features for CCA are as follows. The first is that every local government that wants to participate has to pass a CCE ordinance in order to authorize their customers, their constituents, to be enrolled in the program. In the South Bay, the administrative option that I believe you will be proceeding with is called a Joint Powers Agency, or a JPA. That is a very common legal structure that allows multiple municipalities to participate in programs and administer programs cooperatively. As mentioned before, Edison will continue to provide all of your transmission, distribution, line maintenance, customer billing. So if the power goes out, it's still Edison that is responsible for all of the power lines and all of the, shall we say, pole and wire infrastructure related to power delivery. CCE electric generation charges, including a small exit fee, appear as a new line item on your customer bill. So you do not receive a separate bill from the Community Choice program. It is a consolidated billing. It's integrated into Edison's existing bill. And all of the other utility charges that you already have through Edison for transmission, distribution, utility users tax, all of those other things that are already there, those stay there, and all of us continue to pay those. It is important to note that Community Choice is an opt-out program, and that means that it becomes the default electric generation provider for the community. Customers, by statute, are required to receive a minimum of 4 customer enrollment notices over a period of 120 days or 4 months. We very much recommend that there is a robust community outreach period well before customer enrollment so that nobody feels surprised. But the bottom line is that customers are always able to opt out and return to the utility service at any time. And I apologize because this says PG&E and it should say SCE for Edison. Importantly, the California Public Utilities Commission does still have a role in Community Choice Energy because it is a partnership program with the utility. And so they oversee the CCE implementation plan as well as the service agreement and contract between the utility and the CCE program to make sure that it's all running smoothly for its customers. To date, we have 3 community choice programs in the state. Marin Clean Energy, which is where I'm from, launched in 2010. They are currently offering customers rate savings between 2 and 5% off of PG&E's rates. MCE has 3 power supply options for its customers. The first is called Light Green, and that is a 50% renewable product. The second is called Dark Green. That is a 100% renewable product offered at a slight premium. And the third is new. Local Sol is a community-based solar project based up in the northern part of our county, where 250 people will be able to become virtual net metering customers at a set price over 20 years. And that is a much higher jump up in terms of premium, but it is a set flat price for a 20-year period. Sonoma Clean Power launched just last year. They just celebrated their first birthday. They're offering rates that are much lower at 6 to 14% below PG&E. The commercial customers and the low-income care customers are generally receiving, that in that 10 to 14% range. They're offering 2 clean power products, the first of which is 33% baseline renewable, and then there's a voluntary opt-up to their 100% renewable product. The cool thing about this one is that their 100% power supply is in-county geothermal, that they were able to expand the program to basically service Sonoma Clean Power customers from a local resource, which is one of the core values of the CCE program. The third is Lancaster Choice Energy, which just launched, this month. They're in phase 1. They're going to be offering rates that are 3 to 4% Edison's rate, below Edison's rates. Their baseline product is 35% renewable, and they also have a voluntary opt-up program to 100% renewable products. So we're off to a good start in terms of a real commitment to clean power supply and greenhouse gas reductions through these programs. And this is a map that just shows where we are today in terms of the interest for community choice energy and the way it's building around the state. I really think that comes from the fact that there is now proof of concept, that the program is working, the lights have stayed on, it's financially viable, and it really is delivering on the environmental promise that the goals that were set out when these programs first launched. This slide just shows a little summary of some of the other cool stuff going on as a result of community choice. This gets to the point that I offered up, that community choice is not a mutually exclusive program. It's not just about the clean power supply. It really can be leveraged to integrate and offer some new and innovative programs. So far, Marin Clean Energy has contracted for 235 megawatts of new California qualified renewable power in state. About 25 megawatts of that is within the Marin County service territory. In Sonoma, they've now contracted for 82 megawatts of brand new power, much of that in Sonoma County. Both programs are offering some ancillary energy programs in energy efficiency. Marin Clean Energy just entered into an agreement with Tesla for both commercial and residential battery storage for Marin's customers, which is a very exciting program to partner up with some of the rooftop solar that we have happening here. We have a local electric vehicle charging program whereby member municipalities are able to get free EV charging stations as a result of being a member of Marin Clean Energy. Both programs in Marin, Sonoma, and soon to be Lancaster have very good price incentives to incentivize net energy metering and feed-in tariff programs for local rooftop solar projects. Both have favorable loan programs for energy efficiency upgrades, on-bill repayment, and all of this really goes to stimulating the local economy and providing for new jobs. There have been thousands of new jobs generated as a result of these new power projects primarily in the construction sector. So I'll just wrap up very briefly by covering why now. Why is this of interest to so many communities? And there are a number of reasons. The first of which is that we see a market condition right now and into the foreseeable future that is extremely favorable for local community choice programs. Natural gas prices have not been lower for a number of years, and that does achieve competitive pricing. The cost of in-state solar and other renewable resources is currently low. Importantly, the large utilities are fully resourced through 2018 and 2020. And why that matters is that there is excess power available on the marketplace for these small programs to pick up at very reasonable rates. And so, as said before, now is a very good time to get into this. As mentioned before, the Community Choice Program helps local governments achieve their state compliance requirements for climate action plans and any other number of environmental compliance, and it does so very quickly. And so many communities really like it for that public policy aspect. And I will say, due to the real commitment and growth of the local advocacy community, support and momentum for this program is growing rapidly across the state and across the country. And so I really, again, want to appreciate Climate Action Santa Monica, the South Bay Clean Power Group, the city, 350.org, and all of the groups that have come together to really understand what the opportunities are in the South Bay and to help us run the ball. So with that, I will conclude my remarks, and I believe pass the baton to Joe Galliani, who will offer more and provide more detail on what's planned in the South Bay area. Thank you again for having me, and I hope you all have a great weekend. Take care.
Thank you, Zach. And big thanks to our friend Sean. She would have been here, but she's very cognizant of her own carbon footprint, and she lives up in Northern California. And this is the way we're doing things now. Before I get into this, let me just give you a very brief background of who I am and why I'm doing this work pro bono. I am the organizer of South Bay 350, and I have been the organizer of South Bay 350 since 2009. We're one of the oldest local chapters of 350 in the country. And if you don't know 350.org or you don't know why we're called 350, it's very simple. 350 parts per million is what James Hansen, our nation's best climatologist, told us in the 1980s was the optimal amount of CO2 in the atmosphere to continue civilization as we have known it. We're now at 400 parts per million. We're headed for 450 and beyond. I want to tell you a couple of things about 350. One, my boss, Bill McKibben, has a quote that I always repeat in meetings like this, and that is, if it is wrong to wreck the climate, it is wrong to profit from it. That is my ethos. That is the path that we follow. We believe in doing the math at 350, and this is very simple. And the reason that I quit my job at CBS and I do this work full-time pro bono is because of 2 degrees global warming. And you heard here today news to me that our carbon budget, which in 2012 was about 500 gigatons, is now down to 400 gigatons. And in 2012, when it was at about 500 gigatons, Bill told us that we were about 12 to 14 years from hitting 2 degrees C. And 2 degrees C is that limit, that red line in the sand, if you will, that is the only thing that all nations on this planet have agreed upon in regards to climate change. That is the red limit that we do not want to pass, and most climate scientists say we don't want to go to 1.5. So my perspective is that we have very, very limited time. And as you've heard from the terrific report from Juan Matute's practicum students, our best bet, our greatest tool in the toolkit is community choice aggregation. So let's talk about what we're doing here locally. South Bay Clean Power came about, we just started celebrating basically our 1-year anniversary. And how this started is in Manhattan Beach, California. And 350 South Bay has partnered with the city of Manhattan Beach since 2009 on climate action. They're the only city in our South Bay that has a full-time environmental programs manager. We are not as lucky as the great Republic of Santa Monica to have one of my heroes, Dean Kubani, who has been heading up your environment and sustainability department for decades. We've all learned a lot from Dean, and in fact, the reason that Santa Monica is now considered part of this South Bay initiative is because in the first month or two when we just got started as a grassroots group, we got a call from Dean Kubani. And Dean told us, you know, Santa Monica's been interested in doing something with community choice for a long time, since it first started. And we had an initiative, we couldn't get any traction. We'd like to connect with you and partner with your South Bay effort. And of course, we said yes right away. But how did this start? A year ago in Manhattan Beach, for our annual climate action that we do with them, we came up with a very ambitious goal for that city, MB 2025, 100% renewable powered Manhattan Beach by the year 2025, 10 years. And we held a symposium similar to this in Manhattan Beach, and we brought in experts to tell us what different pathways could we take to get to 100% renewable energy. And so we had Diane Moss from the 100% Renewable Policy Institute, we had folks from the county speak, we had folks from solar, but the person that rang our bell was a gentleman named Cordell Stillman, who came down a month before Sonoma Clean Power launched, and he told us what a CCA was. And I hadn't heard of one before, to be honest with you. But what we heard was a little bit of what Sean told us. We heard first that the law in 2002 made the CCAs possible. And then we heard that it took all the way till 2010 for Marin Clean Energy to launch. And the reason that it took that long is because their enemies at PG&E, and they were enemies, fought this tooth and nail. They put forth Proposition 16, and then they got their asses kicked with Proposition 16 because the people in California aren't so easily fooled anymore by big oil money. And so after they got over the hurdles of PG&E's opposition and considerable opposition from our friends at the IBEW in Northern California, the International Brotherhood of Electric Workers, we overcame those objections, and Marin Clean Energy launched, and they launched, as we've heard, with a baseline offering of 50% renewable power for less money than they're paying the utility, with local control, with job generation, and with economic investment in the community. And we said, what's not to love? Where's the downside to this? Well, we started our grassroots operation, and almost at the same time, a bill appeared at this California Assemblyman, in the California Assembly by our friend Stephen Bradford, then an assemblyman from our South Bay. Yes. He's a very terrible person when it comes to the environment. He's the former public affairs director for Southern California Edison, where he spent 12 years. And he wrote the CCA Killer Bill, 2145, designed specifically to make sure that Marin Clean Energy went out of business, Sonoma went out of business, and that none of us got a chance to do this. Fortunately, opposition rose in this state like you've never seen before. Over 200 organizations, cities, counties, unions, all came together to form Californians for Energy Choice. And despite the backing of PG&E and the big union up north, this grassroots group defeated this bill because we followed the lobbyists for Bradford into room after room after room, and we told them the truth. And he could not get a floor sponsor for his bill. He's turned out, he's out of business, and CCA is in business. He did us a big favor because he brought this whole state together. And we had the benefit of interacting with every CCA initiative up and down this state. We went up and met with the folks from Marin Clean Energy. We've met with the people from Sonoma. We have great friends in the Bay Area who are pursuing this. And we are one across this state in terms of those who are pursuing community choice. Whether it's in the Bay Area, Santa Barbara, San Diego, every major county in our state is now pursuing this. But I will tell you, none is further ahead than we are. And we're pretty happy about that. And part of the boost we got was from UCLA's report to the city of Hermosa Beach. And this gentleman clapping here is Dency Nelson from Hermosa Beach. And Dency and I and some other folks started the Carbon Neutral Initiative in the city of Hermosa Beach in 2010, and that's been part of their city's goal ever since. And one of the things they did to pursue that goal was ask the UCLA practicum to come and deliver a report on how they could decarbonize their electric supply. And what was the answer to that? And I'm going to skip ahead a couple of slides to tell you. Their conclusion and their recommendation was, and you can read it for yourself, I'll paraphrase, if you want to decarbonize your electric supply, Hermosa Beach, you should form a CCA with other South Bay cities because that is the single greatest opportunity to do so. And this report was like gold for us, I have to tell you, because they gave us the power numbers for all 15 cities in what's called the South Bay Council of Governments. And when we talk about the South Bay, I'm down there in Torrance, we're talking about the 15 cities that make up the South Bay Council of Governments. And so you can go down the coast and it's El Segundo, and it's Hermosa, and it's Manhattan, and it's Redondo, and it's Torrance, and it's the 4 cities on the Palos Verdes Hill. But it's also some very other important inland cities, and this is a key to the initiative that we are pursuing. It's Inglewood, it's Gardena, it's Carson, it's Hawthorne, it's Lawndale, it's Lomita. These are frontline communities, my friends. And a frontline community is a community where they stick the oil refineries, where they stick the rendering plants, where they stick all of the toxic operations that we don't have to deal with here in Santa Monica, that in my upscale neighborhood of the Hollywood Riviera in Torrance, we don't have to deal with that. They stick it in those neighborhoods. And not only do they have to deal with those frontline over-the-fence issues, but these are the folks that are suffering the first impacts and the worst impacts of climate change. You go into any of these communities and take a look at what the asthma rates are, and they're giving kids inhalers at 4 years old when they come to the doctors. We work with the California Nurses Association, our great union friends, because those men and women are on the front lines of climate change. They see in their hospitals and in their practices the impacts that are hitting the community. So I will tell you, I was born in Brooklyn, and I am a member of the Lucky Sperm Club. I'm a white American male baby boomer. There is no one on this planet that has been given a greater advantage than my particular demographic. And we, members of the Lucky Sperm Club, have a tremendous responsibility because we've been given so much to give back. And there is no way, and I'm going to tell you personally as the person that started this initiative, we would not be pursuing a community choice program if it was only going to be for Santa Monica and for Redondo and for Manhattan and Hermosa. That's not why we're doing this. At 350, we talk about to change everything, it takes everyone. I've got 5 minutes, so I'm going to stop talking about that and get into some more facts. A community choice from the local level and the cities that start it is so important because those that start this program get to make the rules. Those that are first hand raisers get to say what the goals are. And so in Ohio and Illinois, they don't care about renewable energy. They care about getting the cheapest rates. So those CCAs have nothing to do with California CCAs. But what are our goals? We want to reduce greenhouse gases. We want to provide secure energy at stable competitive prices. We want to reduce energy consumption, and we want to stimulate our local economies. But first and foremost is maximum amount of renewable power. I told you about our great luck in having UCLA come down. I know some of you may not be fans of USC. Some of you live in houses divided, but USC did a tremendous job for us too, because when the city of Torrance was considering this, one of their council members is a graduate of the Price School of Policy. And he had their equivalent of Juan Matute's group do a pre-feasibility study for Torrance. You can see what their conclusion was, but I'll tell you what the gold in that report was. Not only did they quantify job addition numbers, not only did they give us information about how much economic investment would come into the city, but they also did an evaluation of brownfield sites. And Torrance has 84 brownfield sites with a capacity for over 500 megawatts of solar. We can put solar on brownfield sites in Torrance, in Carson, in Inglewood. We unfortunately have more than our fair share. There's not a whole lot you can do with brownfield sites, but one of the best things you can do with them is fill them with solar power, locally generated renewable energy that local investors pay for. They make the revenue stream from the contract, and then the community gets that energy generated right in its own community. And we're talking about a phrase, distributed generation. We don't want to get our energy from big solar plants out in the desert. We want it from every viable roof that's in this city, and we want it on all the worst land that can't be used for anything else. Your homes are already connected to the grid. We don't have to build new big transmission wires. We don't have to lose energy sending it great distances. You know, California Edison says, sometimes mockingly, those of you that are producing excess energy on your roof, it's not going out to fill the grid. It's only going to your neighbors. It's only going to your neighbors. Wow, what a bummer. Well, that's what we love about distributed generation. So, how are we doing? Well, first of all, these are the cities that have passed our resolution, and the resolution is a resolution to participate in a feasibility study. It's a non-binding resolution. You agree to participate. If you don't like the results, you don't have to do anything. But what's the stumbling block to something like that? Somebody has to pay for this feasibility study. We didn't want any of our participating cities to pay for this. We didn't think that they should have to. We think the County of Los Angeles should pay for this. They're immensely wealthy. They have their own climate action plan goals that have to be met. And luckily for us, they love CCAs. So we told our friends at the County Board of Supervisors, hey, you know, San Mateo County Board of Supervisors passed a resolution. They're funding their feasibility study and development costs. They're doing the same thing in Alameda County. And you know why they're doing it and why that's an easy yes? Because no taxpayer money is really used. That money that you give us for this study and these development costs is all paid back to you, the county, the minute the program is up and running from the revenue stream. So this is what we call the easiest resolution in the history of the world to pass, especially since on March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, the County of Los Angeles agreed that they will do a large community choice program. We have 80 cities eligible in Los Angeles County to participate in a community choice program. And on June 17th, Howard Choi, the head of energy and sustainability for the County of Los Angeles, will be coming back with his report to the Board of Supervisors. And I can quite confidently tell you that we will be moving ahead with a Los Angeles County community choice program. How does it work? You know, when we started this, there were no guidelines on how many cities do we need, how much power is minimum to form one of these things. So we did the logical thing. We took a look at how much power and how many cities are involved in the other programs. So a lot of numbers there. Let's focus on the bottom line number, and let's call it 1.9 gigs. That's Marine Clean Energy's program. So we know that a program is viable with at least that much energy. Here's Sonoma. They're at 2.1 gigs, fewer cities, but more energy. So it was pretty easy for us, thanks to Juan Matute and UCLA, to take a look at their report and add up all the power used in the South Bay. And as you can see, we've also added Santa Monica here. And as you can see on the bottom line number, we dwarf, in just our small area, either of those two programs up north. So we knew we were viable in terms of how many cities. These are some just additional numbers. In addition to the South Bay, you can see Santa Monica's numbers. We're also now in negotiations with Culver City. I can tell you that West Hollywood is also going to be part of our program. Beverly Hills has already passed the resolution. So we're talking about, at this point, the 15 cities that make up the South Bay COG and the 5 cities that make up the West Side COG, Council of Governments. Before we went to the county, we developed what we called our 7-city strategy. We didn't want to ask them to fund anything until we had 7 cities under our belt already committed to wanting to do something. And these were our original 7 cities. What happened was we didn't even get Inglewood yet before the county decided that they wanted to work with us. Our friend Sean Marshall put on in November a smaller forum like this, and she ran numbers for us based on our 15-city program in terms of what revenue would be. And as you can see, these were our 7 cities in our first 7-city program, and we're talking about $2.3 billion a year in annual revenue from just those cities alone. What's important about that is that annual revenue that comes in from all of us paying our electric bills is a revenue stream that you can borrow against and a revenue stream that you can finance new renewable energy projects with. There's a lot of money on the table. And we're also getting help now at the state level. Our friend Senator Kevin DeLeon has introduced in February, I believe it was, SB 350. No, it's not named after South Bay 350. I wish it were. But the results are even better. It's talking about 3 50% numbers that are going to change our lives here in California. As you know, right now our renewable portfolio standard, the percentage of renewable energy that should be in the mix from our utility is currently set to be 33% by 2020. Well, the governor and our state legislator has upped that number. In 15 years, we're going to be at 50% renewable energy. That is by edict. At the same time, and many of you may not have heard of this, we are going to cut our use of petroleum in this state for transportation in half over the next 15 years. If you haven't already written to your local legislators supporting this, you may want to. And then last but not least, we're talking about a 50% increase in energy efficiency in existing buildings, and that ties in perfectly with the recommendations that you heard our friends from UCLA give. This is working its way through our legislature right now, and with it being introduced by Kevin DeLeon and Democrats running things in California, it's just a matter of negotiating this deal. It's coming. Then, as I mentioned, on St. Patrick's Day, we were at the Board of Supervisors hearing when they voted unanimously to give us development money and pursue a CCA, community choice. And I was just about, thank you for preempting. And that's Catherine King, and she and Chris Gutierrez in the back of the room there are responsible for bringing Sheila Kuehl on board, for briefing her. And you know, it's pretty unusual in the county of Los Angeles to have a Democrat and a Republican offer a renewable power energy program, but that's exactly what happened, and all 5 boards of supervisors approved it. It's the language of what they approved. And I'm kind of repeating what Sean talked about, but we just had a big all-up CCA forum for electeds and staff members at the Biltmore Hotel last month, or it might have even been earlier this month on the 18th. And we heard from the heads of Sonoma's program, from the heads of Marin's program, from the new head of Lancaster's program. We had financial people there, energy buying people there. And one thing we heard from every single panel all day long was there has never been a better time to start a community choice program than right now. All of the different elements have come together in almost a perfect storm for us in terms of low prices, and everything else, including affordable financing for this. And so this is going to happen. What do we have to do? Well, right now, we are looking for this, what we're calling the South Bay Clean Power Program, and we've clearly expanded beyond the South Bay, so we're due for a new name. But we are going to be the startup for Los Angeles County. All of these other programs have started incrementally with a small group of core cities that start the program, get it up and running, and then what's happened in both programs in Marin and Sonoma is other cities that sat on the sideline, waited 6 months, waited a year, and then they opted into the program after they saw the results and they saw the proof of concept. But what they also had to opt into as cities that weren't part of the first group is they had to accept the program elements and the rules that were set by the founding cities. So I will tell you that we intend to be the founding cities. Our 15 cities in the South Bay and the West Side cities, we trust these cities to have the conscience to make sure that we get the maximum amount of renewable power. And let me just say this, when we start at 33% renewable power as the baseline, or 35 as they have in Lancaster, or 50 as they have in Marin, that's the starting point. Because our goal, and we've had a working group, and I'll ask some of our members to stand up in a minute, but we have a working group of about 25 people, all volunteers. 3 of them are staff members from different cities. Everyone else is a pro bono volunteer. And we have a goal of starting at the highest amount of renewable energy, but in 10 years, we want our program to be 100% renewable powered with no other options. That's the only way we're going to meet these climate action goals. I just want to tell you that I have no experience in the utility business. I don't know that much about how electricity works, but I do know how citizen power works. I do know how personal advocacy works. I've spent my life volunteering on one project after another. In 1984, I was the chairman for the Coalition for a Nuclear-Free Harbor in Long Beach. I've worked on national park issues. I've worked on local environmental issues. There has never been anything I've worked on in my entire career that is more exciting, that is more promising, and is more likely to happen than this. And I want to thank all of you for being here and helping us make this happen.